Hi and welcome to another video. Today we'll be exploring yet another React hook, which is called useMemo. Let's hop into the VS Code and see how useMemo can help us in our daily job. Alright, so we are in our VS Code and we have a very basic Next.js React project instantiated with a usage of useStateHook. If you would like to see how we got to that, I will link the video down below. But just to go briefly through that, we have a basic home component and we have a count and we have a count state and we only have a counter button. So let's launch the application. Let's go here to our local host and see how it looks. So very basic counter with an increment button where we can just change the state. So this is our default version of the app, our baseline, which we will start with. So we want to talk today about useMemo. So let's import ourselves useMemo. And the useMemo hook is used mostly for optimization. So what we can do with useMemo is memoize the value. So let's say we will have some kind of a very expensive computation-wise function, like a lot of calculations which take some time and we don't want to overload the system. We can wrap this function with useMemo and then the value will be memoized, but there is a possibility to pass a dependencies array as maybe in a useEffect hook, which we discussed in a other video, which I will also link down below. And then depending of if some elements change or not, it will be either recalculated or it will be still taken from this cache. So let's do it very briefly here. Let's create ourselves some kind of a expensive function. And we will do this expensive function. Let's say what we would like to do. Let's say firstly we'll do a console log of expensive function, but then let's also do a time of that. So we will use console.time. We have another video about console if you would like to know more about that. We'll instantiate a tag of expensive function. This will be our entry point for the timer. And then let's say we want to do a for loop with maybe 1,000,000 elements which will add to themselves. So let's do a set let result equal 0 and let's do for let I equal 0 to I less than 100 million, I++, and we will add it to result each time. And at the end, let's do return of our result. Let's see, and we will end it with a console time end, and we will pass the same expensive function, and we should get the information how long it took. So maybe first of all, let's create another button here so we can run it. So maybe let's do a button, and on click of this button, we will just launch this function. So we will do expensive function. Yeah. Expensive function like this. All right, that we don't need. And here we have an overlap. And let's see how it will work. So let's put ourselves a console also so we can see those console logs. And if we are doing this, nothing happens, but let's launch expensive function. So expensive function took 666 milliseconds to run, and each time it will take more or less the same time, and maybe then let's maybe throw here some kind of a result. So computed, and maybe let's change it a little bit. So let's do the same thing that console time does, but we will do it manually, so we can have a timer. So let's do a const start time. It will be equal to date now, and at the end we will create a end time and running time. So const running time, it will be a date time now minus start time now, and it will give us a value in milliseconds. Let's see. Let's maybe console log that so we can see what we will get. And let's return only blank string for now. And let's see right now. So we are running our expensive function. It took 686 milliseconds, and we are getting the same value in running time. So let's return from this function a running time. And we will see how we can wrap it in useMemo and how it can help us. So let's instantiate a useMemo. It needs to be done on the top level of the components. So we will do a const memo time or memo running time, and let's wrap it in useMemo. And what useMemo takes, the first argument it takes the function that it needs to run, and the second thing, it takes the dependency array. So if we will right now throw this expensive function, right now let's do this memo running time. So here we will not call this value, but on click we will maybe put whatever is in the state to, let's say, the secrets that we have on the screen. So let's create ourselves a function const handle expensive function set count here. So we will do a set count for the preview counter, and we will take the prev count, and we will change this secret to the value of memo running time. And let's now close it, and let's close the const handle expensive function also, and let's here call our handle expensive function. So if we will click expensive function, it will run and should change this text to the amount of time it took. So if we will click that, we will see that we have this 654, and we have this 654 all the time, and you can even see here in the console that we are not running it anymore. So I'm clicking that, but nothing changes. There nothing is changing because we are using the memoized value here. But this dependency array can be used if some of the stuff would change. So if expensive function would require some arguments that are changing over time, then you would put it here. But for our example, let's throw here a counter value. So it should work this way that whenever count value changes, so it will change with each click of the increment button, this function will need to be recalculated. So right now we are still seeing, let's say, we are doing an increment, and we are seeing that with each increment this function in console log runs because we are recalculating that. React knows that the data changed, which are the dependency of this useMemo, and it needs to update this value. So if I click the expensive function, we will all the time be getting the last value, but whenever we will click increment, it will need to recalculate the function, and yet once again we will have it here available. So this is a very useful approach to make your components, and in such particular cases like compute heavy operations and so on, more effective without the recalculation of some values. You also need to watch for that. Don't wrap in useMemo things that you don't need to wrap, because it adds a level of complexity. And one more note at the end. So currently, when I record this video, the current version of React is 18. It was said at the beginning of this year, so 2024, that React 19 will come up. And one of the features that React 19 should have is the lack of useMemo, actually. So they want to remove the useMemo so that user or developer don't have to worry about that while writing the code, and it should go to the compiler level. So on the compiler level, React should know in the future that, okay, this function is compute heavy, let's wrap it and memoize it. This is only a future, but for now you can use useMemo, or if you are using an application that doesn't run the new React underneath. But it's just a feature that should be available in React 19. I'm just telling you that for the future, but for now, useMemo. Let's use it if needed. So that's all for today, and see ya next time.